well cards and posters there for Pope
教宗方
Francis.
济各
It's been a
出
place where
院。
prayers have been said
这里聚集了
throughout
很
these
多
5
人，
weeks, as
前面
well
我
as
没有
in
全部
St.
都
Peter's
拍，
Square, where, by the way, there's a
少几分钟，因为
live
它好像很敏感，
broadcast of
所以我就选
this
择线
greeting
的
and
拍。
blessing of Pope Francis on the big
这个小窗
screens
口
there
是
in
怎
St.
么样？
Peter's Square.
要出来跟大家讲话还是做什么？
You're seeing here the building of the Gemelli Hospital complex, a very large complex in the northern part of the city of Rome. And Pope Francis will be appearing from the 5th floor, which technically is actually lower when you look at it because the main entrance to the hospital there starts at the 4th floor.
医院蛮
So
大
he will
间
be
的，
one
并不
floor
小间
above that floor in order to be closer to the people below. Otherwise, he's been cared for in the 10th
很多
floor
人啊，
there at the top of the hospital. And
很多
so
人来迎接他出院。
he wished to come down to be closer to the people so they can see him.
怎么是英文的？为什
Of
么
course,
是英
traditionally,
文的？
Pope Francis
奇怪。
gives his Sunday blessing there in St. Peter's Square. And of course, for the past 5 weeks with his time in hospital, that's not been possible. But before leading usually the Angelus on a Sunday, the Pope would offer his reflections, a message on the gospel of the day. And he's continued that while in hospital. The written message has been distributed by the Holy See Press Office
戴口罩，
for
冷是
those
吗？
to continue reflecting on the day's gospel and with Pope Francis reaching out in that way with his own particular message. And we're seeing some people gathered on the balconies of the hospital there. The main facade that you would see when you're entering, where the public enters there. In that complex where there have also been journalists
对
throughout
那
this time
个
there
影
gathered
片时
to
间好像不够。
message as it has customarily these past few weeks.
老人家这是谁？
And at the same time,
啊，表情都很
there's great
一直在那边关注，
expectation
很
here.
专
And
注这
you
样
see
子。
people there with flowers
在
and
等，
gathered to see the Pope after this. A
大家
long
都在
time where
看。
the only appearance there's been is just a photograph that was released by the Holy See Press
为什么老
Office
人
there
啊？
to of Pope Francis when he was
什么
in the
人种都有
chapel
啊，
that's set up there
一
located on
点
the
这
10th
样
floor
子
where he
等
was
啊，那个里
in prayer.
应该是等了很久了。
And there have not been many images as well
很久了
for
这
the
样子
privacy of the Pope during this time of convalescence and
穿西装
serious illness to
啊，
to
欧洲人
recover.
真的
Same time, his voice was heard actually
这个是什么人啊？这个很
about
体
3
面。
weeks ago when he sent a
你是
very
意大利
brief
人的样子
greeting and message of thank
医
you
生吗？医生
that
长得
was
这样子
played
啊？
out
医
on
生长这么的
St. Peter's
这个
Square
这个
during the recitation of the Rosary.
哦，这个原来这么大
Rosary's been
世界各国
led
的
there
国
every
旗，
in St. Peter's Square and in the Paul VI Hall inside the
哇
Vatican,
看才知道有这样的事
practically
情。
every evening since the Pope's convalescence
在
to
叫，
pray for his good health and recovery.
开始在，原来有这样的时候啊。这一天是这样子，所以真的是每一天
And the
都
crowds there
每一天的
cheering
都值得我们
Francesco
去
Francis
看的哈。
as they
对有
await
些人
his
是回忆，
appearance.
对
And
对我来说
it's 12
我没
o'clock
有
and
没有
the
来
Pope's
得及看一些细
Sunday
节，
reflection has just been released, and
太忙了。
in this reflection, Pope Francis
太忙那
writes,
种这
"Dear
种不
brothers
知
and
道是什么
sisters,
单位
a
的这种，
happy Sunday to
可
you."
能是一个公益
The
单位之
parable
类
in
的。
today's gospel tells us about the
我
patience
相
of
信他们
God
的公益
who
单位，你不
urges
用怀疑
us
他们
to
会
make
有什
our
么贪
life
渎
a
之类
time
的，
of
什么有
conversion.
怪问题，应该
Jesus
是不可能。
uses the image of a barren fig tree, which
他如果一直
has
讲
not
的话，我
borne
再
the
划一下。
anticipated fruit, and which of our lives, with
出
care
来要出来了。
and waits confidently for our return to Him.
哎呦，
And for our radio listeners, that applause is
真
Pope
是
Francis,
太
who's
不舍得他了。
waving. He's in a wheelchair
举了一个
at the balcony
拇指
there,
因为他没什么力
waving to
气
the
耶，没
crowds
什么力气。
below. In his first
没什么力
public
气。
appearance since February 14th,
他
apart from the
他
photograph
身
that
体
was
很，
issued a week ago.
他，哎呀，他很勉强，大家都鼓励他。
And Pope Francis
我的
is
天哪，
greeting the
真的
crowds,
是
waving to them
还
and
要讲
smiling.
话哦！
Now the microphone is being brought to him.
哎呦，我的天哪！
Questa signora con i fiori gialli.
I see a lady there with white or yellow flowers. Very nice. Pope Francis greeting a lady in particular who has these bright yellow flowers there as a tribute to him.
他不太能说话。
Pope Francis waving to the crowds, giving a thumbs up as well, and a smile. His voice is weak, but that's quite understandable after all the respiratory therapy he's undergone with Pope Francis now blessing the crowd. He just made the sign of the cross. But the difficulty in speaking is understandable with all the respiratory therapy he's undergone, the double pneumonia that's and the bronchitis issues he's been dealing with in recovering from, with some quite serious moments in that recovery as well. The doctors yesterday, in following his care at the hospital, explained the care over the past 5 weeks and how this will require time for him to get his voice back after receiving the high flow oxygen and also some mechanical respiratory assistance during the night to sleep. His prognosis and all has improved immensely, and hence he's going to be going home later today. And so, but in recovering the voice and energy, that will take at least a couple months of convalescence. That's what the doctor said yesterday, and a limited meeting of people and crowds to recover. And now, continuing on what Pope Francis had to say in his Angelus here, in his Sunday address, that is, the Pope continues in his written message. In this long period of my hospitalization, I've had the opportunity to experience the Lord's patience, which I also see reflected in the tirelessness anchored in God's unfailing love is indeed necessary in our life. And continuing in his message for this Sunday, just released, almost at the same time as Pope Francis appeared there briefly to greet the crowds below and wave to them, injuries. And I call for an immediate halt to the weapons and for the courage to release and a final cease, and requires urgent commitment from the conflicting parties and the international. The Pope continues, on the other hand, I'm pleased that Armenia is possible and may thus contribute to establishing, to pray for me with great patience and perseverance, end to wars and for peace, especially in tormented Lebanon, Myanmar, Sudan, join us on our journey. And issued by the Holy See Press Office. We can see here the crowds are at the hospital, the main entrance, pedestrian entrance there, where and the yellow flowers that really kind of stood out there. City. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this live broadcast and this celebration of Pope Francis, just over 5 weeks of convalescence, when it all started on February 14th, when his bronchitis hospital for the EWTN television, their channel in English, Catholic Faith Network in America, Shalom World Television, Atma Darshan Television, Catholic Television, and our radio stations broadcasting this book, as well as on our YouTube, VaticanNews.va, and for being with us here, and thanks to Menighetti for producing this podcast.
现场收音听一下比较好，他们也不确定吧？对面的商家是不是？这里好像不是什么有钱的区域的，这个地方比较老旧，是比较老旧的社区，是那种不是很有钱的社区，这个感觉。他们真的是跟这样的人在一起。 所以我不知道要不要出来。哎，跳掉了，等一下。应该就是刚刚那个这样子挥手一下，可能不知道有没有出院，感觉应该是完全是不合适出院的，不合适出院的，就是这样子。好，就先看。 看一下文章吧。现在怎么能出院？天哪！等一下，离开医院返回梵蒂冈圣马尔大之家，真的吗？我念一下哈。方济各教宗于3月23日主日午后离开杰梅利镇侯医院，返回梵蒂冈的寓所圣马尔大之家，是刚刚那边吗？在返回途中，前去圣母大殿，向罗马人民救援圣母像敬献鲜花啊！他真的可以吗？表达对圣母的感恩和崇高敬意。梵蒂冈新闻网。教宗方济各于3月23日主日午后离开住院治疗超过5周的罗马杰梅利综合医院，返回梵蒂冈的寓所圣马尔大之家。当天中午，有超过3000名信友聚集在医院的入口处广场，就我们刚刚看到那个画面3000个啊！那个地方能有这么多人吗？当教宗坐轮椅被推到医院大楼5层的一个小阳台时，现场响起热烈的掌声与欢呼声。教宗向众人微微挥手微笑，然后教宗目光落在了一个女士身上，并用微弱的声音说：“谢谢大家，我看到了一位拿着黄色鲜花的女士，她很棒。”哦，是吗？她讲话几乎我听不到声音诶。聚集的人群情不自禁的不断高喊：“教宗方济各，我们爱你，我们支持你。”最后，教宗降服了聚集的人群。这个有些细节我不是明白了我就看他挥挥手这样子，挥挥手是指那个吗？教宗乘坐的白色菲亚特座车离开医院后，并未马上返回圣马尔大之家，而是去了圣母大殿。不会吧？我的妈呀！教宗将一束鲜花交予圣母大殿助理总铎马克里卡斯枢机，请他让鲜花送到大殿内的罗马人民救援圣母像前，以表达对圣母的感谢和敬意。这是一种很敬虔的心。教宗离开医院前，简短的问候了天主教大学杰梅利综合医院的医护行政人员，感谢他们给予他的尽心治疗跟细心护理及奉献精神。